No one really knew the Colonel. He was just that silent old codger who rocked his chair all day long with a glass of muscatel in one hand and a pell-mell in the other, staring blankly at the idiot box that blasted endless reruns of stale sitcoms and lame game shows into the abyss. Always staring, yet seeing nothing. You see, they didn't know the little boy born in a sod house on the plains, a boy whose mother died in childbirth when he was 7, whose 3 younger siblings went to live in an orphanage for 3 years until a plucky 10-year-old helped bring them home, into the 3-room whitewashed tin roof shack in town that father and son built with their own hands and own sweat. They didn't know the teenager who graduated top of his high school class while working 7 days a week in his father's butcher shop, or the state college student who kept up his grades while working 2 jobs and who captained the football team as a 145-pound linebacker and the basketball team as a 5'11" center. They didn't know the besmitten beau who met a beautiful auburn-tressed singer in a county fair talent show and instantly fell in love, or the young husband who quit college and worked 3 jobs to support his growing family, or the frustrated provider who could no longer provide when 3 jobs turned to none after the big crash, or the reluctant soldier who enlisted in the army for $27 a month just to feed his family. No one knew the buck private in the horse cavalry who swiftly promoted his way up to officer, or the captain who had his career sidetracked by a breach of military protocol, refusing to be involved in the internment of Japanese Americans, the ethical warrior who, as a reward for his moral convictions, got stashed in an obscure training post in Pasadena for the duration of the war, instead of the assignment to the battlefront in North Africa or Omaha Beach that he longed for. They didn't know the major, who worked his way back into good graces after the war by heading the security detail at Nuremberg, guarding the vermin whose despicable atrocities were revealed in endless gruesome testimony. Or the military governor of southern Bavaria who helped rebuild the towns and the lives of the people who permitted, or ignored, or even participated in those unspeakable horrors, presiding with fairness and magnanimity over those same people he strove mightily not to despise. They didn't know the colonel, who so willingly went to Korea to fight that unwinnable war because that's what infantry soldiers do. Or the caring father who ordered his 20-year-old son to go into Air Force intelligence to stay out of the draft and to stay out of danger. Or the valiant warrior who earned many medals for rallying his beleaguered troops into and out of the valley of the shadow of death time and again, leading his men through the bloody gauntlet from the front of the firing line rather than from the safety of the command post his rank accorded. Or the beloved commander who earned such dedication from his civilian driver and houseboy that the young Korean threw his body in front of a sniper's bullet meant for the American. An American who for the rest of his life sent money every year to a small Korean village to help support a crippled man and his family. They didn't know the much-decorated warrior who never ever spoke of his exploits. The humble hero whose only stories about his long distinguished military career were his 1 year spent working in a mess hall kitchen in Fort Riley, Kansas, making and baking hundreds of pies before sunrise. They didn't know the retired veteran of worldly battles who took in his grandson to raise because his own son and daughter-in-law had lost their personal battles with addiction and madness. Or the grandpa who taught the boy to throw a knuckleball and to throw a spiral, to shoot free throws and shoot a .22, to drive a nail and to drive a stick shift, to be proud inside, to be humble outside, to be a man. Or the frail patriarch who leaped to his feet the second one of his great-grandbabies came into the house. The newly invigorated colonel, again, taking command, giving orders, and defying anyone to even try to hold or feed or change the baby, as long as he was in charge. They didn't know the caring but taciturn loner who may have never said the words, "I love you," at least not until he was on his deathbed, the last days of the life of a man who was idolized and adored by the person who always understood that love without the need for mere words. No one really knew the colonel. He was just that silent old codger who rocked in his chair all day long with a glass of muscatel in one hand and a pell-mell in the other, staring blankly at the idiot box that blasted endless reruns of stale sitcoms and lame game shows into the abyss. Always staring, and yet seeing nothing. Or actually, seeing everything. No one really knew the colonel. No one. Except for me.